As technology becomes more and more important in the climate transition, CTOs are emerging as really critical enablers of this transition into net zero. So we're talking about AI-driven efficiency and also data transparency, of course, data transparency to digital tools, and also managing emissions and supply chain risks are key in this field. And we also talk about how technology leaders are redefining how organizations deliver on sustainability goals. So, how can CTOs accelerate the transition to net zero? We're going to talk about this in this session, and we will unveil insights from the 2025 CTO Climate Transition Insights survey. It's therefore my pleasure to welcome on stage Beth. Beth, you're Beth Bovis, Global Lead of Sustainability at Kearney, and Ingmar Rentzhog, CEO and founder of We Don't Have Time. So Beth, Kearney is a global management consulting firm. Could you please tell us briefly about how you work with sustainability?
Thanks, and thank you so much for having us here. Kearney's always been focused on impact, and there's no place we need it more than in the discussions around sustainability. We really believe that we need to embed sustainability in the business as usual. This isn't something that happens on the side, it happens at the core, and that's where we focus. We focus on leveraging our expertise in industries, especially in supply chains, to think about how you can not have a sustainability strategy, but a strategy that is fundamentally sustainable.
So thank you, Beth. And We Don't Have Time and Kearney has collaborated. We have collaborated previously on a survey on this. And could you please tell us briefly about what the survey is about?
Sure. Well, we're really pleased to be partnering with We Don't Have Time. And we talked about what's missing in the conversation around sustainability. And there's some voices that are missing. Last year, we focused on the CFOs, and even after the administration change in the United States, saw that CFOs were investing more and increasing the amount of consideration of sustainability in their budgets, but maybe focusing a little bit more short-term versus long-term in what they were doing. This year, with all the talk about AI, whether it's our savior or our downfall, we wanted to bring the voice of the CTO into this conversation. And so that's what we did. And we're going to be excited to share some results here.
Thank you, Beth. And We Don't Have Time is, of course, a media climate platform. So why is We Don't Have Time involved in this survey, Ingmar?
Because, the companies are not really... If you see the driver's seat in a company, it's not, sorry to say it, it's not a sustainability officer. So it's the financial officer, and it's the CTO, the technology officer, that is doing the hands-on work. The finance are funding it, and the CTO are building the future. And if we are going to fix the future, we need to talk to the people that are funding the future and building the future. So they need to be part of the conversation, and we need to understand their needs and their perspective in order to calibrate the green transition so we get what we want. What we want is delivery.
Thank you, Ingmar. So Beth, could you please share with us the initial findings from this study?
Happy to. And the late breaking news, as we have the first results of the survey, and we have over 300 CTOs globally or CIOs globally who participated in this discussion. And the first thing I would say is that the CTOs do have some elements of sustainability on their agenda. It is not their number one thing on their agenda, but when we ask them what parts of sustainability are you focused on, number one, clear and loud, was energy management, whether that be in support of AI and data centers or in using technologies around smart buildings and smart supply chains to help reduce energy usage in their value chain. Very close second was reducing waste and decarbonizing overall. But there was quite a gap between that and the energy management for the CTOs. Now, motivation was coming from the usual old-fashioned place, regulation. For the most part, CTOs said that they were focused based on regulations. And in some sectors, we saw the emergence of B2B customers putting pressure on the CTO because they're looking to do things in their supply chains, and the CTO, it's landing on their desk. But they don't feel pressure from their boards. they're not hearing from their leadership teams that sustainability is their priority, but they do know that sustainability is part of how they're going to go after the AI priorities on there. The other thing, when we talked about CFOs being well over 90% looking at sustainability in their business case, that drops for CTOs. Only about half are fundamentally embedding the sustainability question in how they look at investments and how they look at making choices around technologies and solutions for their business. So still a bit of a gap there to what we see on the financial side of the house. And then, even with all the tech that is being deployed around decarbonization and AI, they pretty much are focused on CO2 only. There's a lot of other technologies out there, but when we ask them, how are you deploying tech? Which sustainability problems are you trying to solve? It's really the CO2 emissions that they're focused on right now. And so, do we know whether that's going to evolve as the conversation here continues to evolve? We hope so. And we're actually going to continue over the next couple of months with interviews and some additional things to try to see how this is evolving real time.
So now that you have these results, preliminary, but even so, it's a very harsh sound.
Oh, yeah.
So now that you have the results, the preliminary results, what are you going to do with them? What's the next step, Ingmar?
The next step, this is just a preliminary result, so we will gather more answers from more regions, more companies, and we will disclose that in Davos together.
Yes.
And hopefully we will have even further knowledge. It's easier to find CTOs in Davos than here.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will have more CTOs and technology people joining the conversation. But I must say that this is really critical to get the CTOs on board. And I think it's not so big surprise of how they answer, but it's an acknowledgement that regulation can really be something driving innovation. I can just give one example from our day-to-day life. We all know that how hard it was to have diff chargers if you have an iPhone or a Samsung, whatever. And European Union stepped in and just said, have one standard, and so much better for us consumers. And that's a regulation that CTOs and elsewhere needed to just, we fix it, and it becomes better for everyone. We need smart regulation for consumers, and that could be a way of get more CTOs to step up and be on board. And I think it's really important for the circularity economy, how to repair things, etc.
Indeed.
And so low-hanging fruits, I would say. So I hope those results will also be well received in commissions, in other policy making, other in Brazil or other parts of the world. They can see that if they regulate smart, the CTOs will do it.
Thank you, Ingmar. So Beth, what are your thoughts on the next steps and how this can be put to use?
Well, there are a few, and reiterating, we're going to certainly continue to look. We're going to invite CEOs into this conversation with us, and with We Don't Have Time. In the responses we saw, there are some CTOs who are out at forefront, who are responding that they are leveraging and embedding sustainability in all they do. So we want to hear from some of those lighthouse stories and bring them to all of you and have them share with their peers as well, whether it be at Davos and in other forums, so that they can share what they're doing. Because these are the averages of 300, but in that 300, there are some amazing examples that we're excited to highlight going forward.
Excellent. So about AI, some look at AI as the salvation to pretty much everything, and some say it's a big threat. So from each of your perspective, how do you look on AI and sustainability? Ingmar?
I'll say, I don't think we will solve the climate crisis by not developing. And AI is a credible tool for innovation. It speeds things up. You do research, you can gather information, you can process, and you can also help with decision making. Of course, AI itself is consuming so much power, but that can of course be a big problem, because we need to consume less power, be more efficient, and the power needs to be clean. But what I see, and that was actually in this preliminary findings, almost most of the CTOs, they're focusing on energy, because energy costs money. And you're very unwise if you do things in wasting energy. So I think those that now are building the big data centers for AI, the winners of the race will not be the ones that today are worth trillions of dollars spending money like no tomorrow. That will not work in them. They need to change strategy, or they will have competitors that will do things much harder. And you have already seen this if you compare, Chinese AI is much more energy efficient compared to American, and efficiency is often is going to be the winner. So my hope for AI is it drives innovation, and it drives innovation on how to become more efficient. And it's one more thing with the AI debate that I don't really see is discussed or well understood in the climate movement. I'm not super worried about AI is going to consume up all energy, because AI now is like an arms race for AI. So people, governments and investors are throwing in so much money into this. And as long as those money are going to build clean energy, that means that we're funneling money towards building and scaling clean energy. And what's happening when you're doing that is that you get efficiency of scaling clean energy, that it's getting cheaper and cheaper, more and better and better. And that will lead to that clean energy will be much more competitive compared to fossil fuel. So yes, we will see a build out and will release of emission, but in the end, the AI arms race will help us crack the fossil fuel industry by innovating their clean energy. But I still see that it's so stupid to waste energy. So we should also regulate the AI energy consumption, because it's really stupid design today. So I see that it's kind of a little bit double. But in the end, I think that AI will help us. But it's all a lot of risk with AI. It can take control and all that. If I just say one thing downside with AI, and that's basically connected with all those big global platforms, they are too few, and that makes us very dependent on a few companies, a few models that will have enormous power. I was actually writing a story on the way here to Belém, and I was digging into this letter that Bill Gates published, that we should, the climate crisis is important, but other things are also much more important, and we don't have the same urgency. So I wrote a story about this, and it's a lot more to it. It's not just his opinion. It's also this small article where I found out that it's paying money to climate denial think tanks that have the same organs for years, etc. So I wrote about this, and I use AI. So I used GPT, and it didn't want to write the article. So I model. No, it's like this is not true, but I have the facts.
So it's an AI sensor in there.
Yeah. So I switched model to Grok, that is Elon Musk model, and do you know what it said? It's the best I ever read. It's brilliant, because Elon Musk doesn't like Bill Gates.
No, of course.
And obviously ChatGPT is programmed to kind of like Bill Gates. I don't know.
That's crazy.
I don't think you should regulate AI to have train them in a certain way. I think that's very hard. But we should have many models controlled by different parts of the world, different companies, because it's so dangerous to have a monoculture in nature, and it's also dangerous to have it in tech.
Indeed. So Beth, you get the last say in this.
Well, I'm going to double down on, I think, AI is a catalyst for not only energy management, but water management. And it will really help us get that to scale and get the cost where it needs to be. And I am a big proponent of, we are, as a community, there's a lot of open source knowledge around sustainability, around climate. And that should be good. That should feed models and allow people who are trying to do new things learning from how to do them sustainably. But we need to make sure that those are getting picked up in these models. I think that's the risk, is making sure that what we know and what science says truly is getting picked up in the models.
Thank you, Beth. So before we conclude, where can people find the report?
So the report will be on WeDon'tHaveTime and Kearney.com, and you can find it there. Right now, there'll be a link to participating survey if you want to share it with your CTO to continue to do that.
Great.
And then we will publish it there in both places.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Beth Bovis, and thank you very much, Ingmar Rentzhog. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have three more guests in the studio to discuss this exciting survey. Hani Tohme, you are head of sustainability for the Middle East and Africa region of Kearney. And Anna Celsing, you are chief sustainability officer at Alfa Laval. And Ingmar, you've been introduced already, the CEO of We Don't Have Time. We have Luisa Orre, and you are the chief business development officer at Stegra. Wonderful to have all of you here in the studio. Sorry for the wind, but I hope you can all hear each other here, and we'll just power on. So, Luisa, let's start with you. You work for Stegra. Most people in North, where we're from, are very well familiar with Stegra, but it's a very innovative company that aims to produce fossil-free steel. And I'd like to start with you, your reflections on the survey, please. On the survey, the CTO survey, yes.
The reason we're here is this is a COP of truth. This is a COP where we're going to implement what solutions are in place. And I think that what we've managed to prove is that regardless of the ambitions that have been set 10 years ago in the agreement, we very much do have the technologies available to us in order to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. So I think that's the key message that we have here, and where we want to show that we have proof that this works and that will be climate sustainable, and at the same time have a sustainable business model as well.
So it's indeed all about implementation. So Anna Celsing, you're from Alfa Laval.
Yes.
Most people know Alfa Laval. It's a global provider of products for heat transfer, but also for separation and fluid handling. So Anna, what is your take on this survey, please?
I recognize myself very well, because this is so much about innovation. We have to get to the core of our products to drive the transformation. We have to, for example, circular economy is so important, and then we have to innovate our products and make them in a new way. We have to get the data in place to really show progress, prioritize in the right way, and it's all about innovation and technology. And I work so much for R&D, and we don't have specifically the CTO title, but similar functions, also CIO, I would say. So,
thank you, Anna. So turning to Hani, you are chief, well, I have an almost scream, it is very windy. You are head of sustainability for the Middle East, Africa region. So would you say that there are differences between the different regions at Kearney when it comes to these findings that you saw in the report?
Yeah, absolutely. You see that level of maturity for sustainability, the level of acceptance is very different. You also see the narrative when it comes to the different regions is very different. So when you look, for example, the survey, and when you look into the role of CTOs and so on, you see that the response from the Middle East looks sometimes different, right? Because of the ownership of the topic of who takes it forward when it comes to the Middle East. So CTOs, when it comes to, let's say, F&B, when it comes to industrial, they care about the end user, the customer, and that's where their behavior is being impacted. But when it comes to the rest, see that the CTOs are not the ones talking about climate action, talking about sustainability. It's actually the CEOs and the board members, because that's basically driven from from sovereign wealth funds and so on. So the Middle East has a bit of a special situation when it comes to that, definitely pushing in the right direction, but very different from the rest of the regions.
Thank you for sharing this, Hani. So we see very clearly in this study that CEOs really have impact. So what do the companies need to do so sort of unleash these powers and make them efficient?
I think it's a smart strategy to get the people that needs to make things done in sustainability in the same room. The CSO, the CEO, the CTO, and the CFO. If you do that, you have everything needed to make things done. And I think CTOs, it's also important to explain why we need to drive innovation in a certain direction. Because you're winning in business, you're one step ahead. It's actually, I want to be one more person in this room, and that's communication, public affairs, because some of the companies that are ahead of other competitors, like Stegra, are also meeting a lot of resistance from the ones that are lagging behind, and they're good at influencing the general public through media, and also influencing the policymakers in Brussels and elsewhere. So the ones driving innovation needs to also not be as good as them, as influencing the policy making and the public, so that they understand why this is not only needed, but why those that are not changing will be the losers if you think longer time.
Thank you, Ingmar. I'd like to follow that up from your perspective, all of your perspectives here, because this is a really interesting question. Who needs to lead on this, and who needs to be in the room? So, Luisa, do you agree with Ingmar in terms of that we should involve other positions in this fight?
I really agree that it's not a sustainability question. It's impossible if it's just from that perspective. When we look at Stegra and what we've managed to do, it really is a cross-functional work, and it's underpinned by finance. This concept needed to be financed, and in order for it to be financed, it needed to be bankable. In order for it to be bankable, that means that we have to show that there is technology that is mature enough in order to deliver these climate-friendly solutions. But the absolute most important stakeholder is the customer. And it's a customer that requires a product that is at a significantly lower carbon dioxide emissions. And with that in mind, because I think if we only go from a policy perspective, then there's risks in that. But if we go from a customer demand perspective, you're setting the roots much deeper. That's how you create a sustainable business model and not just a sustainable product. So I completely agree that it's a cross-functional work.
Thank you, Luisa. And Alfa Laval is one of the companies that is procuring fossil-free steel.
I would say that, Ingmar, you said CEO. It's really the CEO needs to be in the driver's seat, and then a team needs to work, of course. And to really make the CTO work possible, I think data from customer perspective driving that work is so important, that you see what customers really want and expect and how they can build their business case with the products that we make in our R&D. So it's very much about leveraging data in the discussion, showing facts, I think, to really get the most of the CTO work that we see. And then also connecting to public affairs, driving for the different regulations that needs to be in place. So not customers sometimes just don't ask for green products that we sell, but when there's a regulation in place, then pushing for it, well, then all of a sudden we get there. So I think it's both. There's so many different dimensions that needs to be in place, but data on what customer wants from different perspectives, regulation or growing their business is important.
Well, at the risk of repeating what my fellow panelists just said, I think I'll go a bit further to say that the moment you have sustainability identified in a person in the organization, that's where you probably are going to fail, because then that person will be sidelined. Whenever there is everyone in the C-suite buying into sustainability, you don't even need, for example, chief sustainability officer, because it's embedded in everyone's business, and that's when it actually succeeds. And when I take it from my perspective, and I do quite a lot of projects in sustainability, the best ones are the ones that have been driven by the CEO and even further by the board, because it's no longer just a pressure coming in saying, well, I want sustainability, but look at my P&L. It's where the whole strategy is about one strategy. It's about how the firm should move and how sustainability will be embedded in that.
Thank you. This is a perfect segue to my next question, because it is actually about strategy. Strategy is, of course, key in this. But how do we, well, more like, what are the main barriers to really get this strategy in place, Anna?
I would say that there's so many different stakeholders that needs to be aligned and be on board. That's a really main challenge. Like you say, you have to have the CEO and even the board. We have positive impact as our pioneering positive impact as our purpose. That makes it a lot easier. But if you don't have that, you again, sorry to then go back to the data, but you really have to go back to the data showing the business case of this Otherwise, because money talks, that's the world we live in. So we really have to find that business case to get those stakeholders on board and have one strategy, one target to strive for. Yeah.
Thank you. And Luisa, I mean, you really have a business case, and that's really what your focus is very clear. But tell us a bit about the strategy that has been working for Stegra so far.
So the mission is to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries, and we're starting with steel. We saw that actually that the technology to decarbonize the steel industry, it was there. Electrolyzers, that's a 100-year-old technology. The DRI tower, where we reduce the iron ore, that's been around since the 70s. A lot of it done in the Middle East. And the way of making steel is the established way of making steel in the US, but not something that we do in Europe. And so it was a matter of bringing these technologies together. So I think that's one thing that helped with the strategy is to, in order to finance it, at least with the financing that was available at the time. So this was a couple of years ago, our investors didn't want to make crazy technology bets. They wanted to make sure that there is not too much technology risk. So that's one aspect of it. But then going back again to the customer, which is where it starts. For our customer, this is a solid business case as well. Because over time, they will have to start to pay for the emissions in their production. A lot of our customers are from the automotive sector. And if they can't find green steel, they have to pay for the carbon dioxide emissions in going into their production.
And all this is thanks to regulations.
Yes, it is thanks to regulations, but I think it's an interesting aspect because we're building Europe's first steel plant in 50 years. So it's not just that there's regulation there, it's also about renewal of industry in Europe with equipment and processes that are state-of-the-art, that are modern, energy efficient, that require less personnel, that have sensors, so they have AI embedded, or at least the conditions to do that. So even without the regulation, it's still, coal is still too cheap, but even without the regulation, we would do okay.
But the regulation I was referring to in the car industry, that they really need the fossil-free steel. So Ingmar, your perspective on the strategy here. I mean, you run a huge corporation, a company talking about climate from a communications perspective. What is your view on the strategy perspective here?
I think the strategy is we can't run a business if we're not making money. And many sustainability focused business are taking a bet on the future because of politicians have said that we're going to have this target. You see, in the car industry, for example, if you're lagging behind, you're supposed to pay big penalties. But what's happening now is if there's so many companies that are not caring about them, suddenly they have the power to say that, no, we just postpone that, or we cancel the ban on fossil fuel engine, etc. And that's creating an economy where the loser decide the rules. We really need an economy where the winner decides the rules. And in order to get that, we need to have board leaders in not only the CEOs, but also the board. But the board is not really empowered, it's investors behind the board. And that's a tricky situation if you're a public traded company. You don't really have an owner with flesh and blood. It's kind of anonymous capital from BlackRock or something. So where we see board companies, many times it's not public traded companies. So it's tricky here. And everyone needs to do their thing. And the secret power I can recommend is the power of communication. We need to communicate in a smart way. And if you're a leader in your space, fossil-free steel, for example, I don't think you will make it if you're going alone. In Sweden, we have Stegra, but we also have the state-owned fossil company that are also investing in fossil-free technology. Sweden is too small to have two steel companies competing with each other without cooperating. I think the winners need to find allies and push together. And communication is powerful for that. So that's the way I see it.
Thank you, Ingmar. And let's talk a bit about the other employees, not just the CTOs or the C-suites. The top layers might have a clear vision, but what about the rest of the employees? They might have seen something on the internet that is maybe not Stegra because they probably know, but in general, other organizations that how do we really address the make sure that this is really enshrined in all the employees, the understanding of the importance of this transition. I mean, Kearney, you're a global management firm. What do you say, Hani, from that angle?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because if you don't get the employees on board, it's like driving a ship but without an engine, right? So basically, there are institutional ways of how you can get the employees on board. So you can set up KPIs, for example, where you translate your strategy into KPIs, MBOs for employees. You can put it part of your values as an organization so that they see it on a regular basis and so on. But those are, if you want, the institutional ways. Then comes something bigger. Because the employees, in all fairness, they don't really care how much the shareholders are making money. If you really think about it, right? Okay, great, we're making profit, that's good. But unless it impacts the individual, they don't really care. They need a bigger purpose. And today, if you look at our workforce in general and organizations, what is the common purpose that you can put? It will not be profit. I can tell you that. And if you look at most of the people into the workforce, they need that bigger purpose. And that bigger purpose could actually be around sustainability, because sustainability is not just about how I say environment, so the social aspect. It's also the governance. It's a lot of things that come into sustainability. And I think organizations should use that as a cohesive way to bring everybody together, right? So it's not a very difficult thing. It's actually an opportunity where you have to leverage it to get everybody on board.
Thank you, Hani. Anna?
Yeah, can I build on that? Because we have purpose and sustainability at the core. And still, my job is about embedding this and getting everybody on board. And it's really hard. It's super hard, even though.
How is it hard?
Because you have a very large global organization where you have different regions, you have different managers, you have different customer focuses, etc. So how do you communicate in an efficient way? How do you build an organization where you have sustainability champions? Because you can't be everywhere. You have to communicate a lot. You have to talk about the vision. You have to remind everybody about the core of why we are here, purpose, and everybody's proud. But how can I and my day work translate what I do into sustainability? That is super important. We recognize when we work on this to find that. And that's something that we have to get through all the managers, all the different teams, and it's a big job. So it's not easy. It's continuous work all the time. But that's the way it is. And communication is super important, both externally, to be proud that we do a lot of things and we help the society and we have really products that makes a difference, and that we are proud to walk the talk and do what we have to ourselves, putting out fossil fuels, for example, having clear plans that are transparent for everybody in the entire organization. Then I can feel that it's not the talk. I see it in my daily work.
Thank you, Anna. So Luisa, I mean, sustainability is your USP at Stegra, of course, but all the employees get it, or what is your approach?
I mean, I can't swear that it's 100%, but we do have the benefit of being a newly listed company with as a mission. And what's incredible to see is the caliber of people that we have been able to attract from all over the world, and that it really has been people we've attracted from all continents, all backgrounds, all ages, and also from academia, industry, tech startup, finance, that are attracted by this mission. And so it's a very blessed position to be in. That being said, we still have trade-offs every single day. Or it's, here is the fast way of doing it, or here is the better, more sustainable way of doing it. And what I think it's good to have that's the vision and the mission at its core, but we still work with our values. We do so continuously. So one of the things we do, just as an example, is that every employee gets onboarded within 6 months. We do a nature quest, and that means that we spend 2 days out in nature, connecting our company values to the iron ore that comes from the ground, the energy that comes from water, hydroelectric and wind power. And this is a reminder, and it's something that we need to work actively with every single day so that it really is embedded. So not 100%, but I think we're at a good starting point. And what also happens is then you don't need to tell the procurement team, for example, that you should have a sustainability criteria in your procurement process. It's just natural that people realize that we can just judge this by price. We need to add another dimension. So I think it's probably a little bit easier. I understand that when it comes to big existing organizations, it becomes sometimes a cultural transformation as well.
Thank you, Luisa. That's quite an onboarding process. So I'd love to do that. So Ingmar, you're a star in communications. What are your thoughts on listening to how they work with sustainability and sort of embedding it into the atmosphere of the employees?
I mean, as a communication platform, I'm advocating for communication. It's two things. One thing have been overlooked. I mean, we have more than 450 partners. And it's something I've observed. I started with time years ago. It's very few companies that are focusing, and those that are doing it, they can do it even better. The internal communication. It's still a missing link, and it's a golden opportunity to increase the morale of your workforce and get people to get ideas, innovation within. So that's, but it needs to have resources. It will not happen by itself. So that's a low-hanging fruit, and I'm glad that Alfa Laval knowledge this and Stegra as well. I think that is something that you just do it. It's a no-brainer. And it should not just be done by telling your employees that this is important for the future. No. You should educate people. Educate in all the future trends, in how other companies are acting, other technologies, etc. And the knowledge space for this is incredible. And many don't have a clue. So I think if you do that, you will get very loyal employees and you will get better at everything. But other thing I've observed, and that's very worrisome. Since Trump came back in power, many companies all over, not just in US, but I will say in the space of internet global companies, they are turning down the volume on communication because they see that there's a risk of regulation, but not the regulation we're talking about here, but the anti-regulation, to get in trouble, to lose business in US, etc. And some cases can be a lot of truth in that. But most cases, it's kind of just self-censoring and a little bit weak excuse to not doing anything. So I think
and this, of course, ripple effects.
It's ripple effects already. So now in this troubled time, we need to see companies stepping up the communication more than ever. And my advice to the companies out there that have this dilemma, if you can't say things externally, up the volume internally, and when the world is ready for it, your employee will speak out for you, and that is the best external communication we'll ever have.
Thank you. That's a comment. Turn up the volume internally. I mean, that regardless of external and internal, that's always a good cause, right? So let's talk a bit about AI. I mean, AI is top of mind of most people now, but I'd like to use this panel to talk a little bit about how you use it and the aspects of sustainability. So, Hani, turning to you, what is your take on the uses of AI for your work?
Yeah, so basically in sustainability, what you don't measure, you kind of abuse. So you typically, historically, we have struggled a lot in sustainability because we talk about aspects and we don't have the actual numbers for, especially when we talk about the intangibles, right? Social aspect and a lot of things. So today, the power of AI is to help us monitor, to help us control, help us inspect, but to also mostly to us predict. Right? If I take example today, if we look into Google Maps, the typical one that we all know, combined with AI, now you are able to predict you will have shortages of water, for example, or where you might have a climate disaster way ahead of time. That helps you in some mobilization on. That helps you reduce kind of the damages, or at least be able to anticipate what kind of damages are there to take care of the people, right? So this is one of the examples. I have also some project on the Red Sea where we looked into the marine life, and now we are looking into an aspect that we couldn't control or couldn't measure before. All this is coming naturally into the business because AI is enough empowering what sustainability is, and sustainability is empowered by AI and so on. That's one aspect. The second aspect, when it comes to consulting in general, I would say AI is becoming quite, in our daily life. So we cannot do projects with AI. We cannot use it in internal processes and so on. So I believe it's taking over. The important part is the ethical parts of AI. So AI takes a lot of data and uses it, but if the data is wrong and based on history of, let's say, an industrial age where a lot of things like human rights, like a lot of things are not there, so will not give that, right? This is where we have to be careful, but beyond that, it's great because it's pushing forward and taking us to the next level.
So how about the energy consumption? That's most often the most critical point in many people's views. What do you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is also another way of you can predict and do the right measurement and how you can adjust it. So absolute energy is going to benefit from it. Maybe.
Yeah, should I continue on that? Because we're really into that. IoT solutions, having measurement across all our big sites or most of our sites, measuring every minute to optimize our energy consumption, reducing. That's one thing. And then we also need AI solution, even blockchains, to really get data across our value chains. Because it's so complex, the climate data, and we need to be able to say what we do matters, so everybody else can do the same, and we should do more of it. And we need AI to get our heads up, because if you want a CO2 emission of my products, well, that depends on what day it was produced, in what country, what production line, etc. So there's so much complexity into that. But otherwise, we look into AI solutions and tools to optimize or give better product to our customers. Like we have an AI tool for with an infrared camera looking at what we sell heat exchangers to optimize our service. And that has potential to save 2.5% of CO2 emissions globally if you optimize your heat exchangers. And that's with your iPhone. You can do that with the iPhone, just looking at heat exchanger, taking a picture. That's one example. Then we have optimization of route for ships crossing the sea with a lot of weather data. That's another example. Building digital twists that we can then optimize to make processes across the industries better. So there's so many good things, data or AI, that we can bring to the customer to help them with their sustainability targets, and that we use ourselves to reach ours. So it's both ways.
Thank you. Great examples from both of you. So Luisa, how are you using AI in your profession?
So not yet, since we're not in operation yet. So for now, it's
maybe.
Yes. So for now, just a heavy usage of ChatGPT, but it's clear to us that having AI in our operations is going to competitive advantage. And so we spent a lot of time on making ourselves AI ready from a digital stack perspective, making sure that our technological systems, our IT infrastructure, where we have a best breed strategy, and we're able to pull out and put back in microservices depending on how we'll develop. But it's also interesting because the steel industry is a very traditional one, and very often you meet gentlemen that have many decades of experience, that when they're doing the recipe for the steel in the dark furnace, they just have like a feeling of what's right. They know that, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that should do it.
It's like cooking without a recipe.
Yes, and I think it's like with any chef that after you've done it decades, you know how to make the perfect recipe. But I think one of those perfect examples where gut feeling can be complemented, maybe not replaced fully, with data. And so that's also something back to the sensors and the IoT perspective, where we're making sure that we're embedding any sensors that we can in order to be able to have that gut feeling from an institutional perspective and not dependent on just a couple of experienced individuals. And I think one of the challenges to make sure that data, that we know what it's actually measuring, because I think that's the difficulty is once you do have reams and reams of data, how do you know what it's actually measuring and what it actually means? It goes back to the boring stuff when it comes to AI, which is definitions and how to clear that all up. But that's something that we're spending a lot of time on.
Thank you, Luisa. So what do you say when you hear these examples saying from your perspective?
I mean, AI, you can't really be in business without using the modern tools that make you more efficient. But unfortunately, there's also a lot of players that are using this tool to become extremely more efficient, doing very bad things. And I'm not specifically talking about oil drills that will drill more oil. That is not my main concern here. It's actually how this is used and deployed in information warfare. Because now we're very, very, very extremely fast moving, where it's cheaper to produce low quality, fake and false information. And so if we look at the internet and the whole information out there, the amount of quality information, fact-based and quality journalism and things that takes time verified is shrinking, and it's flooded with this AI. And some is, people that are really want to do things really badly, in selections and all that. But mostly it's a lot of shit used as a noise in our attention economy. I can give an example. Instagram, they are now experimenting to launch an AI functionality. You are getting suggestion on how to comment on videos and photos. You don't need to do it yourself.
Oh dear.
And as we know, the internet is now full of fake AI, stupid videos. So we're now heading towards an internet where people are producing videos with AI and copying them on AI. And I mean, this is so idiotic. And this really needs to be addressed, because I think it can be fixed. We need to have regulation, and we also need to be a little bit smarter, because if the big companies in control of how the information infrastructure is set up, if they continue on this route, they're optimizing advertising money in something that will erode trust. And then you don't have trust in who is watching your ads. Is it robots? Or what is it? People will stop paying, people will stop using it, and we're heading towards like information chaos. So that's what I see as the disadvantages of AI. I think it's absolutely addressable and fixed, but something we need to look up on. I am not so worried about the energy consumption, because I see that AI is funneling an enormous amount of money into developing clean energy. So clean energy scale and get cheaper, so we can compete with fossil fuel. So that's not my worry. That is actually what I see as a positive thing. Yes, we are building a lot of things that will emit things short term, but it will lead to an economy where fossil fuel will phase out itself, because it will be so expensive compared to the alternative. But this information, would say, chaos, warfare, something's happening so fast. So that's really worrisome.
And this could and can is affecting pretty much everything, even businesses, of course. So science is a big theme during this COP and during our broadcasts. It's the first time there is a science pavilion that is actually mandated by the UNFCCC, and we're collaborating with this science pavilion. So how do you use science in your decision making, Hani?
Yeah. So thanks for that. And I'd like to start with a simple fact, right? Because sometimes science is questioned. I would like to hear the opinion of insurance companies for the first 6 months of this year, with 160 billion lost because of climate disasters, if they believe in science or not. And I think it's time to really say the facts as they are. And I'm with you, right? So today it's important to have a story. That I agree, because sometimes to get to the audience, to get to mass audience, you need to have a story, a compelling story, and you need to take context into consideration. And I'm not against that, but that doesn't remove the role of science. At the end, this is the single source of truth, right? So we need that in order to know where are we today on a scale of whatever metric we are using. And the moment we let go of science, the moment we start giving, feelings into the whole equation, this is where we're really going off. And unfortunately, this is a bit of a power balance between sometimes a bit the politics, the business world, and so on. But at the end of the day, I advise companies, right? And I have to go by science, because without it, I cannot say anything correct. And therefore, you see, for example, one of the things we started doing is we went from just giving the normal consulting to providing product level consultancy, where we even with one of an Perlab, for example, we have our subsidiary. We even look into a product and we look into the details of that product to understand what does it really mean to change a certain technology? How much is the actual carbon footprint, and so on and so forth. So in summary, again, maybe to your first question, is it different between different regions? I would say yes, because I never had that question around me, like, is science an option? It has always been the option and the only fact for truth.
Thank you, Hani. Anna?
Yeah, science is absolutely crucial for us, not the least what you say, climate risks. I mean, If we don't understand them through science, we might be in big trouble. We have sites across the globe in India where it's going to be very hot in a couple of years. Are we going to invest, for example, in a site where you might not be able to operate? Well, that's not a good idea. So we really need science to make really good decisions and reduce our risks. And that is also about financing what we do, reducing risks across. But then we are in this because we want to make a good or make the right thing, and we want to reach net zero. And to do that, we believe that we have to work science-based. We have science-based validated targets, SBTI. It's the way we build trust for what we do. And without science, we wouldn't have the trust we believe. So, and prioritize the right things because it's complex. And we need science, a lot of data to be able to make those decisions.
Thank you. I'm going to go straight to Ingmar, and then Luisa can finish. We have a few more minutes left. So science, and of course we work with the Science Pavilion, and maybe you want to slide in why we're doing this, Ingmar.
Because scientists are often very bad at communicating, and I think we can help. And I'm really glad that help is accepted and appreciated. There's a problem in science, and that's it's you need to know how to do communication well. You need to tell stories. You can tell stories with facts, but if you only tell the facts, people don't care. So there's a lot of things that you can help science to get to more people, to be fired up. I mean, science is cool. It's everything that we use here is because of science. So we need to get people to not only believe in science, but be excited about science. And the communication needs to be improved in order to make that happen. So that's why we work with science. But there's also another thing regarding science, because we're living in this political landscape where suddenly facts are mixed up with opinions. And it's now coming from the far right, a lot coming from the United States, but it's also spreading all over this anti-science movement. And we need to be a little bit self-critical. How come we ended up here? And I will say not the only part, but one part is that it's the cancel culture. We now have a cancel culture of science, but the cancel culture started with some political movements that canceled everything they didn't like. They didn't like Donald Trump, for example. So people started to unfollow everyone on social media that said something about Donald Trump. So they live in their own echo chamber without seeing everyone. And people that are getting canceled, sometimes very unfairly, they are getting so frustrated. So they are, okay, if you think I'm an idiot, I become an idiot. And science has also been misused many times, where people say that my opinion is based on this science, so you are wrong. But that's not the way real science works. Real science, you look at the facts, and you welcome an open discussion about if you have better facts. And if you agree on that, both parties move on and say, okay, you're right, I was wrong. Let's now agree on the new facts.
Less polarized.
And some science have been used as weaponizing, like I'm the truth because I have this scientist on my stage and you're an idiot. We need to be better at disagreeing with each other, but we also need to respect that opinions are opinions, facts are facts. And that's what is now becoming extremely blurry and mixed with the AI I talked about earlier. This is something we really need to counterbalance and build something else.
Thank you, Ingmar. This is really to the point. So, Luisa, how does this resonate with you and your work with Stegra?
I think it's a very interesting points raised, and one of the challenges I see is that absolutely science needs to be there, but we have to think really long term. I mentioned in the beginning that the reason why we managed to get the financing for our project 6.5 billion euros was because it was mature technology. So this was science that was invented decades ago. And so I think, so we need to think long term about this and make sure that there is continuous investments in R&D and the companies that are pushing forward, because the science of today is going to be the commercially viable options in the future. So I think that's one aspect. But I also completely agree with this, that it can't just be scientists, that there is a communication problem. And it's not just that, it's sometimes there is a very compelling science or a very compelling scientific solution, but that there needs to be the commercial aspect to it. There needs to be the communication aspect to it. And so once again, it comes back to this cross-functional or maybe cross-sectorial work that needs to happen, where we make sure that science is focused on the problems that we need to solve as a society, where communication is an important part of that, and then make sure that there is the investment required for allowing scientists to solve those problems in a constructive way, but also then that those scientific problems don't become dogmatic, that they become commercially viable, pragmatic solutions.
Excellent input. And we have like a minute left. So what are you both, all of you, hope to bring home from COP? One sentence.
Well, we actually don't have time anymore. So truly, we talk about implementation. And, that's several I've been in. I keep hearing a bit the same story. So I'm hoping that the story now is to do it.
Thank you. Anna.
And we have the solutions. So we have to just implement, as you say, and then we have chase out and decide to phase out fossil fuel and have a carbon price.
Thank you. Ingmar.
I will say that I think what we can achieve here in Brazil is named by Lula as the COP the truth. And I think he means it. He doesn't mean he has the truth, but he means that he has ambition, that this is a COP where we speak clearly about what's needed to be done, how big the problem are, and that we have disagreement that this is not easy. If we put all that on the table and stop cancel each other and start working on implementing the solutions as a common goal, because every one of us wants to have a future, that will be the break point where we are turning this around and start doing what it needs to be done.
Thank you, Ingmar. Luisa.
I think that the important from our perspective is, again, I agree with you. It's not going to be easy, but we need to still keep the vision and the long-term targets, and that we're here to show that is possible, not easy, but possible, and we can't give up now. There's too much at stake. So to encourage politicians and governments to stay course.
Well, thank you very much, Hani, Tohme, Anna, Celsing, Ingmar, Rentzhog, Luisa, Orre, for this very inspiring conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.